Hello, and welcome to the Cinemondo podcast with Kathy, Mark, Burke, talking about movies, horror, sci-fi, unusual, unknown, forgotten, underappreciated, always interesting. And today, once again, we have our favorite special guest. Well, we can't say that because our other guests.
I am so.
She is, but we just won't tell them.
Don't tell anybody. Lisa's our favorite.
They're not going to see this.
Our favorite.
This is Lisa Fancher.
Rock star.
Hi.
Frontier Records.
Good to see everyone. It's been a whole year since I did one.
I know.
Has it been a year?
Yes.
Holy
Too
shit.
long.
Yeah.
Too long.
Wow.
Since the COVID.
Oh my God. Okay, well, you'll be on a lot more now because
Yay.
you're kind of getting our shit together.
It's
Yeah.
about time.
We miss it.
Seriously.
Well,
We're ready for you now. We're professional now.
We just watched a trailer for a movie that I think was just came out recently, and it's getting a lot of really notices on the Netflix, right?
It is.
Yes.
And it's called The Dig. And
The
it's
who?
The Dig.
You dig it?
Yeah, it's not kind of sort of not like what we normally talk about here on Cinemondo podcast. It's got
You mean because it's good and classy, stuff like that?
It's nobody gets their head cut off or anything.
There's
like
no
that.
murder.
It's a gentle film. It's like an existential film and very sentimental in an effective way, I think. But should we do a little premise?
Well, let's do a synopsis first. Let's talk to people and ask them, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and comment and tell us what you think because we want to know. And if you know of other kind of cool, classy movies we can do, we may not though because we don't really like classy stuff, but maybe if you can convince us. But definitely subscribe and let us know what you think.
If it's good, I mean, if you're going to recommend movies, make sure they're really, really good,
but not too good because if they're too good, they're boring.
But this film, The Dig, is directed by Simon Stone, and it's the screenplay is by Moira Buffini, and it's based on a book, and it's a true story. I think slightly fictionalized, but apparently fairly close to the truth. It's a real thing that happened. And it's called The Dig. And I actually saw this film not knowing anything about it.
I didn't either. Barely. Yeah.
Mark and Kathy recommended recommended me to watch it. And I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be, it's The Dig. Okay. It's probably they're digging up some ancient Sumerian demon.
It'll unleash some curse.
And,
There'll be blood spurting out of their necks.
Exactly.
All kinds of
A
things.
mummy will definitely appear.
Right.
A mummy. Yeah. Mummies and scarabs. And yeah.
It was weird though. That did not happen.
No.
I was kind of surprised by the end. I was like, where's the mummy?
Sadly.
What happened?
Not
No
one
curse?
mummy.
God damn it.
But it's kind of it's a historical drama. It's a period piece. It takes place in 1939 in England. So everybody has those classy English accents.
Classy English actors.
No,
But Rafe is trying to do like a super working class thing too.
Yes.
For a change. He's like, I'm not an archaeologist. I'm an excavator. 'cause
Right.
He was taught. So he's like,
He was
very-
adorable.
He's
He
so
was.
good, that guy. Everything he does
Love him.
is
So good.
he's almost never recognizable in the things he does.
Yeah, I kept thinking, this is him, right? I
Yeah.
wasn't sure.
But the story is basically a woman who lives on this estate with her young son, and
A widow. A widow.
A
Yeah,
young, pretty
widow.
widow.
Kind of emotionally vulnerable widow.
Yeah. And you think you get the impression that she just on a whim decides to find out what's underneath these ancient mounds on her property. There's in England, of course, there's a lot of ancient history. And of course, when you think about things like Stonehenge, they're just sort of plopped in the middle of a farm, or a field or something. And I guess people just for thousands of years have just plowed those fields, like they said in the film. They just work and they just look over and go, oh, there's those mounds, and they live their whole entire lives without digging into those mounds and finding out what's
I thought
under
that was
them.
so weird.
Yeah.
That all this time, everybody's like, there's probably something in there. Yeah, maybe we should look into it someday. And just no one ever did.
But how do you know whether it's a good mound or a bad mound, where you dig into it and it's just dirt? Like somebody threw a bunch of dirt down.
Well, they talked about how some people go around and they stick a pipe down into the mound and then they smell it to see if there's death, which was a really creepy little.
That's yucky.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun. So I guess there wasn't. So no one ever bothered to dig them up.
But the idea, I think, was that there were these two sort of mound-shaped mounds, and then there's one big one that was sort of oval-shaped. And his, to get back to the synopsis, the woman who owns the property decides to get this guy that she's heard of somehow to come check it out. Like, what do you think? What is your professional opinion about these mounds? Should we dig into them? And you get the feeling that her curiosity has just gotten to the point where she just wants to know if there's anything in there. And he says, yeah, we could take a look, but I'd recommend doing this and this. And she's like, well, I think, there's a little bit of they kind of have a little disagreement, but he's the pro. So she
kept saying, I have a feeling about this one. He goes, no, that one's the waste of time. And he gives me
somebody's already dug in this one.
Like people have already looked at it because that's sunken in. He goes, no, let's look at the other ones.
But then it occurs to him that she's right. She might be right, that these people who tried to dig in it before were digging in the center of it, when in fact they should have been digging on the ends of the mound. So he starts digging, and of course he finds the archaeological discovery of
spoilers.
Like I was saying before, I watched this thing having no information about it at all, and it was really good. My wife and I both really liked this movie. My wife liked it more than me, I think, because it was so fascinating as it revealed, just like you're digging, the story uncovers plot points and character, things about the characters. And to me, it was like an archaeological dig, this movie.
It was. I mean, there's the layers and the really delicate mechanisms of trying to unearth something that possibly could be in there. Like they'd be really careful because you can't just go out and start digging, and because you might disrupt something.
Get a backhoe and just dig all that
exactly.
Dirt out.
Bring in the backhoe. But I also like kind of there's some subtext too, because it's 1939 and war is kind of imminent, and they keep showing these planes kind of flying. Here they are in this beautiful pastoral, environment, very rural, and then there'll be these planes kind of, zooming over, and there's this little hint, so everybody just kind of stops and looks at the planes, and then they go back to it.
And then they also realize that if we do start working on this thing, we're going to have to, if there's a war, we're going to have to stop, because suddenly all the resources go towards fighting the war. And it was just, there was a lot of those kind of existential things going on in this film of things coming to endings and beginnings and history and how we'll be remembered and things like that.
Well, this is based on the real site is called Sutton Hoo,
which I love that name. The Sutton Hoo dig. Yeah, it's a Sutton Hoo.
Yeah, 1939. So it's all it was right before World War II. So you have this sense. I mean, with the fighter pilots, the fighters flying overhead, that there's this impending doom coming. So there's and also the fact that Edith, the main character, she has a health issue, and so I think that's what spurs her to say, "Let's see what's under these mounds."
I think she knew her time was limited.
There's this sense of time is limited, and our life, which is going to change very soon. This bucolic English countryside life is going to explode.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get that sense.
And she's got kind of a crush on Ray Fiennes, and her son's like, "Daddy's here," and then neither one of them realize that he's married, and he just wants to get away from the wife for a while. So he doesn't answer letters.
Sad.
I know he's got a stack of letters this thick, like
so bad.
Sorry, too busy to talk to you.
But I love how the wife of his wife turns out to be this wonderful person that you really like. She's not just this nag, she nags.
She's very practical. She's like, you go ahead and do your thing, and I get it. There's this woman, and she's pretty, and I'll just be home, and you just deal with what you need to deal with. It's
you
like, okay.
Back.
But I think when she was saying I think she was talking about the thing they find in the mound. She was like, I know she's your whole life, right?
Well,
now.
I think it was kind of a double meaning in a way.
Yeah.
And also her last name is Pretty.
Yeah.
Just very the Carey Mulligan's character, which was kind of, and that's a true thing too. Which is kind of funny.
It's kind of an old fashioned style movie, the way it's paced too. It's very slow and pensive and thoughtful. And there's other, it's also kind of episodic in a way, which I really liked. It's got characters that you learn about and you get their story, and then some new characters are introduced, and then you get a whole new set of story from that.
That felt very invaded too. I like how they did that, because you get really invested in Carey Mulligan's character with Ray Fiennes and the son. You like this whole dynamic. It feels very private and intimate, and they're having this, they're unbearing this mystery, and all of a sudden here come these new characters, like as the museum takes over and they bring in these new people to dig, they bring in this guy, and you're like, I don't want these people here, but then you end up sort of liking these people, and so it just kind of expands the universe, and you're kind of reluctantly, just like the characters in the movie, not sure whether you want to like these people or not, and then you kind of do.
And they have their own dramas too. They have their own traumas and sadness and things that pertain to the times, as far as something being a horrible issue that actually nowadays wouldn't be that big of a deal, but back then it was illegal.
And you got to cover it up.
Yeah,
married to a woman. That's right.
Yeah.
And the museum world, something that I didn't know, like apparently they're all jackasses and love to take credit for what other people found and come in and stick their flag in the ground and be like, this is the British museums or whatever, because poor Rafe is not a pro and not savvy in that world.
Yeah, they tried to go, hey, we're the pros here, and then the museums would kind of duke it out on getting, possession of the finds. So that was very, I thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic too.
Apparently they exaggerated that a little bit in the story. I read
it's true.
I read something where they actually had the relationship between Basil Brown and the British Museum was not as bad as it. He just
didn't give him credit though.
He didn't.
Yeah,
have
but
credit,
nevertheless, I didn't give him credit for decades.
Bastards.
Yeah, but he's got credit now. But I guess I mean, maybe the excavator
better than nothing.
I don't get credit on TV shows I work on.
I sure never got credit.
And
for
that's
the department
BS
heads, the department heads get the credit, and you kind of get used to it. I mean, you work in a job, and other people get the credit for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I like the fact
work
that
for them though. Like this was his project. And
right.
Kind of see
He
they
was
kind of
working for her,
decided.
and then the British Museum's like, this is ours.
Yeah.
Right.
Sad.
And that you were just upset about that because you were with Edith, and this was her, and it was on her property, so you feel like it's hers.
Property,
but then when you think
paying the guy,
exactly
right, but then you think, well, okay, this everybody should see this. It should be at a museum. This is ancient history, Anglo-Saxon. So anyway, it plays with your head, the psychology of something like this happening. Plus, just the little kid in me loves archaeology, loves finding stuff in the
he was
dirt.
cute.
It's really cool.
Loved him. He's walking around with a little tinfoil hat or whatever he had on
the
his
actual little kid. Mark was saying the kid in him liked to.
Well, yes, the kid in me, but also I like the little kid too.
I like
Yeah,
the little
kid
kid.
was great,
For a kid, he was really sweet.
He was really cool.
Like really, really a good kid actor and not all smarmy and everything.
I like how they would be digging. He'd be walking around telling them stories and kind of almost like having a radio on, telling in the background. He's just blah 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 like the whole time.
Buck Rogers.
It was
probably nothing interesting ever happens in Sutton Hoo.
I know that sounds really nice.
Sutton Hoo, sorry, Sutton Hoo.
Sutton Hoo.
Whoville.
But I liked how the movie was basically, I felt like two parts. It started, which I kind of wish it had stayed small, even though I get why they did what they did, because it's a true story. But I liked just the beginning and the discovery and the dig and the smallness of it and the sort of intimate mystery and their sort of almost fleeting, relationship, the sort of little, sparks that were flying a little bit there. And I really thought that was really cool. And then when these other people came in, it got a little soapy, get a little, I feel like we got a little too much relationship stuff with everyone. Just got a little, I don't know, a little over the top, but I still loved how it looked. I mean, the wardrobe was amazing. The sense of place. I mean, it was just really incredible. And while it was a lot of fun at the end, a little more energy, I just really liked that first half.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I think it has a deliberate pace, but it's never boring.
No,
which it was what I really liked about it. Like I really want to know what the dig was, and then what's happening. With that scene with that plane that crashes. It's like it's intense.
Yeah.
So.
And that probably happened more than we know, even.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
It was beautifully shot. And like we keep saying, the pacing of it kind of had a vibe of a Terrence Malick kind of a feel to it. The way certain shots were staged and framed, like a character would be a tiny little figure down here walking across a field, and just we see the huge sky, and the blowing wheat in the wind and things like that, the grass and the wind through the trees. There were little touches, little hints of things that really put you into place. Like Kathy said, the idea of feeling like you're in a place is so important to certain kinds of stories. And in order to do that, a filmmaker has to let the camera roll a little bit and let the tape roll and record the sounds of the place and the look of it and the way it sounds when the wind blows through the leaves and the tree. Those little things that you subconsciously stick in your memory about a place.
They also had a very interesting technique in that, the director, where he would have this dialogue and they'd have this shot where the people weren't actually speaking. And they'd have the person speaking over it. And you'd have these two shots and they cut back and forth, but they weren't actually talking. And it would be more voiceover. It was very dreamlike. I really liked that technique. It was really, really beautiful.
It was really subtle too. I kind of was like, are their mouths moving here? And then you realize that it's dialogue from a later scene that's laid on top of
really nice effect. I thought that was really beautiful.
I started thinking about the mechanics of it. Like, okay, somebody dug giant holes and put this boat, spoiler alert, but anyway, put this boat in there, all the little things that have to be covered with dirt. And then they have these crazy rainstorms where Rafe would have to run out and put would have to run out and put tarps over everything that they just dug up. And be like, this must have been kind of brutal.
Yeah, I liked how they kept having these sudden rainstorms and just all the mud and everybody was just covered in it. And they're sloshing around trying to cover all the really super delicate, items that they were undigging. And I also thought it was interesting how they got natural organic, materials, like they get the sod to put, some of the artifacts on. And then when he was covering the ship, he would put these big branches of leaves over it. Like they tried to keep it really natural. And I thought that, and I guess because maybe there wouldn't be some sort of like reaction to some, artificial, contaminant that might touch this and just disintegrate.
They probably didn't even have plastic tarps yet, but you don't want to put anything like, modern in there. And
well, they did have plastic tarps because they showed them, or they had some kind of tarp.
Fabric though. They look like
maybe they were fabric,
oilcloth or something.
Oilcloth, like rubberized fabric that you use in for a tent.
But those did not look fun to work with. It looked really
I started
messy.
thinking really early in the movie, I was like, oh God, please don't let it be magical realism. There's a boat that comes by with people are sailing and he's just having a cigarette. And
I was like, shit.
Oh my God, it's like people from 6 centuries ago, telling them what's going to happen. But anyway, that was
present day
just people sailing.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. Yeah.
But it did put that image in your mind. You kind of, without him saying it or without any kind of a visual cue, you get the impression that he's looking at that boat thinking that's what that boat might have looked kind of like,
Right.
And it's sort of like he was just imagining the history of it. Like, wow, there's still boats going up and down this river. And that boat that I'm digging up went down this river however many zillions of years ago.
Yeah.
I think one of the most heartbreaking moment to me in the whole film, because there's a lot in it, is where she finally gets up the nerve to invite him to dinner. She still doesn't know he's married. They show her getting all dolled up, beautiful wardrobe and hair. And she has people helping her. And then his wife makes this sudden appearance, like shows up to go, "What's up?" And he's like, oh, and so he has to cancel dinner while she's getting ready. Her face when that happens, oh my God. I was just like
devastated, just totally devastated.
Because you feel like she probably never thought she'd meet anyone she'd want to be with ever again. She's out here by herself with her kid. And it was this little moment of her being vulnerable and going, I'm going to go for it. And that was like, of course he canceled. It was so terrible.
And then he was bummed because he wanted to have dinner with her too, because he was basically considered a servant. So now he was like on some kind of an equal footing with her. And there's the wife shows up.
Yeah. And she's all like, so you haven't read my letters, have you? And he's like, no.
Busy.
That look on her face, you're talking about that. That's the thing I like about movies like this, is where a lot of the acting is done with looks on faces. It's not, I mean, you didn't have to have a scene where she says out loud, I'm so upset that his wife showed up. What are you talking about?
I didn't know he was married.
No, he was married. Yeah. It's like you see it all on her face. The director trusted the performers to carry that, and the look on her face, like you said, is so complicated. She's disappointed, but she's also a little embarrassed. You know what I mean? Like,
and almost like she kind of predicted, like, yeah, of course this is going to work. I knew
what
this
was I thinking? You know,
Yeah.
like it was there was a lot of that in this movie, a lot of those little moments. And in that way, it kind of reminded me of the style of Downton Abbey in a way, which I think
I was going to say Downton Abbey is a good barometer for this too, because it's old fashioned, but still very watchable. And it feels very contemporary in pacing and just style. So you're not feeling like, oh, this is such a stodgy movie. You never feel like that watching this.
No.
Right.
But there's one moment that I always use. I always go back to this moment in Downton Abbey that I think is a perfect example of a director trusting the performance and the idea and just leaving out the expository dialogue is when, and if you're familiar with Downton Abbey, you'll know what I'm talking about, but there's a character who used to be the chauffeur who is now a part of the family. And years later, there's a scene where he is opening the door to his sister-in-law of the car. They go out to the car to go into town to do something. And it's been so long since he was their chauffeur. You don't even think of him as a chauffeur anymore, but he goes out and he opens the door for her and he looks at her and he gives her this little smile and she kind of looks at him. It's a beautiful little moment. And she gets into the car. And if you're not paying attention, you're not making that connection. He's like, but the idea is, remember when I used to do this when I was your chauffeur?
And they didn't have to say it.
Didn't have to say it. And this movie, The Dig, has a lot of those trust moments, you know, where the director trusted the performers to tell the story with their acting.
Yeah.
Well, it's beautifully directed, and it's a great cast. I mean, you know, Lily James, Ben Chaplin, along with Ray Fiennes and Carey Mulligan. I mean, they just know what they're doing, and so it's beautifully a first-class movie. And
an actress is from Downton Abbey. They had the actress come in, the younger woman who comes in with the husband. She's on Downton Abbey.
Lily James,
Lily.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a real good one. It's like Burke said, it's a different Cinemondo type movie, but we like all movies that are good. So
and also I feel like I kind of needed, like when I started to watch it, I was like, okay, this is gonna be that kind of movie. I'm just gonna lower the expectations, but it ended up being so moving and so involving. And I feel like I just kind of needed this gentle, just a little light mystery, just enough, and just really mature people doing mature things and just being very adult about everything, just being very just elegant and elevated. And I just needed that moment. Like, this feels good to watch a movie like this. I really enjoyed it.
It was intelligent. It had an intelligence to it. It tackled some sort of existential questions that other films do, sort of clunky, you know, in a clunky way. But this one touched on these really heavy duty ideas and thoughts, and people ask those questions, you know, that we really ask sometimes, you know, when we're sitting around a campfire or something and we're just, you know, I wonder what so-and-so, you know, and you ask these dumb questions. You know what I mean? Like
all those times.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those moments, like in the
this
film.
This is the proverbial campfire right now.
Yeah, this is what we're doing right now. But in the film, it was an actual campfire. But it's one of those kind of questions. You know, there's some of those kind of questions that sometimes you're like, you know, in 1,000 years, if they dig us up, what would they find? You know, and you think about that, and you know, sometimes maybe if you've, you know, been doing some kind of chemicals or whatever, but you get into those kind of. We're
going deep into Burke's history here, I think. Campfires, hallucinogens.
I don't know if that's true or not, but sometimes, you know, you hear people talking like that. But
I never have
talk like
I've
that.
read about that kind of thing.
But I'm also watching The Detectorist, which I highly recommend. I subscribe to everything because I just want all channels.
I want all options.
I don't care what it is. But The Detectorists never find anything good. Like, they find pop tops and garbage. They never even find like a wedding ring. So it's just funny, like modern day people that are still obsessed with it, and they live in a little tiny town, and everybody goes out with their metal detector, and they're
it's like Truman Capote's vault.
Yeah, exactly.
Truman Capote's vault. You know, I bet you'd find more in his vault.
Yeah, I'd be interested in Truman Capote's vault. Yeah.
Geraldo Rivera. That'll be our next episode. What we find in Truman Capote's vault.
Yeah. Let's just think about that. What could be in there?
Might be in there.
Oh God, being names. It's just so bad.
But that is the thing about archaeology. You know, it's like when you think about, I talked about to a friend who actually is an archaeologist, and she was saying that one of the things that it's interesting about archaeology is the fact that when they do find something, it's huge. It's like, wow, this is, because, and I think she told me this, someone else might have told me this, but it was like, imagine if you had to go into New York City and dig or try to find out what life was like even in the 1920s, or the 1950s even. It's difficult because it's all been covered over and built over and torn down and built over. And so it's rare to find things, it's rare to find things in the ground, that hasn't been disturbed, and generally the only things we find are things that were buried with people in hidden places and they had to keep it a secret. I mean, think about in those old ancient times, they buried all that gold down there. The idea that they had to kill the servants who helped them bury the boat is probably true. And only these elite people knew where so-and-so was buried or what was buried with him.
Right.
Because how are you going to guard that thing 24/7? And how are you going to stop people from digging
Everybody
it up?
would be out there digging it all up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's true. It's like, and I like how in the true story, apparently, because they assume they don't really know who was buried here, or they assume because of all the riches that it was probably someone very important, like someone royalty. But they only found like a human shaped form in all of the debris, but no actual body, because it's just so ancient. And I thought that was fascinating, just a little human shaped thing in there. Like, what?
Well, that was they actually have gone back in recent years and re-excavated that site and dug it up again and used modern techniques and technology to try to find more things. And so they've
crazy.
And you can see these things once things get back to normal. You can go to the British Museum and see these artifacts.
Now I want to see them.
I know.
See what they got.
It's interesting stuff. And one more thing I wanted to mention. Mark, did you start to say something?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm listening.
I don't want to bulldoze.
No. Go ahead.
But one thing I wanted to mention was from a production point of view, like as I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I work on films and television.
You've never said that. I did not know that.
I had no idea.
And I've been on sets so many times where you have to do these kind of engineering type things. I've worked on like crime shows where they dig things up, and that is so hard to do. And to do a scene where you're digging something up, there's a process to it. It starts here and it ends here, and you have to make sure that if you're cutting the film together, that you don't have a scene later where that thing is still buried that you already dug up. There's all kinds of timing and working out the logistics of doing something where you're revealing something, and also to make it look real, to make it look like a real archaeological dig site, and to make the people look and behave like actual archaeologists of the time. They are very different than what they'd be doing now. But at that time,
they were wearing better clothes than I ever wear, ever.
I was going to say they had nice wool clothing.
They were the nicest
jacket.
Everybody's wearing vests and tweed and these leather shoes. Everybody looked like they were going out to like a party, and they're all digging in the mud.
And you look at the old photographs, and it's like, yep, they were wearing it. The guy was wearing a tie when he found.
I saw a picture of the actual dig, and I thought it was a shot from the movie, the greatest shot, because it looks so much like what they did. It was really pretty.
They matched it, and they did a really good job. And there's one scene I won't say anything more about it other than a character has something caves in. And a character is buried.
That was a great scene.
That is so difficult to do
scary.
too.
Right.
I mean, not just the part where it falls, but the part where they uncover this person, and it's an actor that we know. And, it's like, having been on sets where such things are done, it is super difficult to do that. So I was very impressed with how beautifully executed the excavation and the dirt stuff, the stuff in the dirt. And like you were saying, it rains so many times, and so they had to take, I guess I imagine they had one set for the wet scenes and one set for the dry scenes, so they could keep the dry set pristine and not ruin it. But whatever they did, you really get the impression that it is raining and the mud is flowing down, and they had to clean it back out again. And that stuff takes a whole lot of engineering by the production designer, the crew, the set dressers, and so they get a big thumbs up from me.
I'd watch those DVD extras.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd love to see a behind the scenes of this.
Yeah.
It's probably nuts.
Yeah. I'd hate to watch it and it's like, oh, it was all CGI. We did it all on a green screen.
It's just a big green tarp in the ground.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Sucks.
No.
But I really enjoyed
the dig
it.
looked amazing.
It's
it's a well-made film. It
is.
looks great. I mean, the dig looks, the excavation site looks amazing, and it's a pretty movie to look at. It feels like you're in the English countryside, which is not a bad place to be for a few hours.
It felt really nice to be there.
And you really liked everyone in there. Some people are kind of creepy, but you still like them.
Yeah, they weren't just simple, cutouts of like villains and good people. It was like there's a lot of complexity to all the characters. Really well done.
That's what I like too. Yeah.
Yep.
The bad guys from the big museum actually turn out to not be all that bad. You know.
Right.
No. So that's a new one for Cinemondo. Just kind of classy.
Just a classy movie.
We're just being so highfalutin right now.
What happened to us?
So next week we're going to do the Downton Abbey rewatch every episode.
Well, Kathy, you're really not highfalutin when you say highfalutin.
Yeah, I guess it didn't sound very classy, did it?
That blows it.
Yeehaw.
Damn it. I can't give her my trashy roots.
Just to be clear, Downton Abbey was an awesome show. We loved that show.
I loved it.
Great
that is something if our viewers have never seen, which they probably have, but if they haven't, that's we recommend that one.
Yeah.
Highly.
Yes. We're those people.
And we also recommend you checking out our YouTube channel and subscribe to our channel and watch all the videos. This one and plenty others.
Yes, tons.
Subscribe and comment. And,
it's growing. Be part of it.
Yeah. And ask Lisa Fancher questions. She has all kinds of answers.
Ask me something.
Just ask her.
Bert, do you do like a flyover, like marketing, like you watch us on YouTube?
Watch us on YouTube. Please.
Watch
marketing,
us on
marketing,
YouTube.
marketing.
The alien says.
Act.
Have you guys, speaking of archaeology, I have one of these from
Pazuzu.
Iraq.
The greatest archaeology scene in the history of the world.
Seriously.
I think so. And
I think the only one I remember.
Oh, what about this one?
What's that from?
Is that the Mummy?
Is that from?
What's that from?
What's it from? It's from the dig.
It's familiar. Is it not? It's not Raiders of the Lost Ark, is it?
Yes.
Oh, Raiders.
It goes on top of the stick, and he lines it up, and the beam comes out.
Right.
Nice.
Right. Yeah.
That's not what melted their faces, though.
No, it was bits of the true cross that melted their faces.
That's a movie where you didn't feel like they were really digging at all.
No, there was no really conventional digging in that.
They never left the back lot.
Yeah.
No, that was definitely all fake, but it was so great.
When they find Pazuzu, that's a moment right there.
Oh my gosh,
that's a great archaeology scene.
Oh my God, so good.
So next week we'll go over more archaeology movies for you guys.
Yeah. Gonna run the gamut of archaeology.
I can't even think of any besides that. But I'm sure there are some. The Mummy.
Werner Herzog did a thing where he took cameras into that cave with the cave paintings in France.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
There's also Truman Capote's vault.
Truman Capote's vault.
Oh yeah.
We should.
That one's easy because there's nothing.
We should open Truman Capote's vault live on the Cinemondo podcast.
Let's do a live
are we
event.
Talking about Al Capone's vault, or what's
Yes.
He called it Truman Capote's vault.
Same thing. It's still
one
empty.
of those gangster guys.
Those weird C names. I can never keep them straight.
He was the head of a big family in Chicago.
Yeah.
He was scary.
Here's the Go Lightly mob.
Oh my God. Enough of that nonsense.
Yeah.
I watched that on TV, I'm proud to say.
Me too.
So did I.
Which one?
Geraldo's still getting dragged for that, however many decades.
Al Capone's vault.
I watched it.
It was so disappointing. It was so thrilling and so nothing. Yeah. Oh well.
Oh well. Anyway. Yeah,
Thanks
check us out on the
joining
social
us.
media and check us out on the internets and the Twitters and all that stuff, like Mark said. And thanks again for watching and for listening. And for those who are watching, thanks for watching. And those who are listening, I'd like to say thank you for listening.
People watching, thanks for listening and watching.
And,
Yes.
And thanks for watching.
or one or the other.
But that's going to be it for this
We're off the
episode of
rails.
Cinemondo, where we talked about The Dig.
The Dig. We all liked it.
1930s drama, which we all really liked, surprisingly.
Yeah, I did not expect to like it.
Yes.
It was really fun.
So we're gonna
Tally ho.
bye-bye. Thanks for watching.
Royal wave.
Bye, y'all.
Cinemondo signing off.
See you next time.